Hello and welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever noticed maybe a shift in how you decide who or what to trust, or even, what to buy?
It feels like something's definitely changing, doesn't it? Our world seems to be undergoing this pretty profound transformation in how reputation actually works.
Exactly. And its impact is reaching into, well, almost every corner of our lives.
And as always on the deep dive, just a reminder, our goal here is to explore the ideas in our source material. We're not necessarily endorsing the viewpoints, especially when we get into some of the more unconventional stuff.
Right. So today we're diving into what our source material calls the reputation economy.
Yeah, we're pulling insights from a YouTube video transcript by Clif High Sci-Fi World, trying to understand this emerging landscape he describes.
Our mission really is to unpack what this reputation economy might mean for business, for politics, even for navigating the legal system.
It's all about how trust is being redefined, isn't it? How old systems seem to be fracturing and what new strategies might be emerging for, well, for individuals like you listening.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our source suggests we've been heading towards this reputation economy since around 2007, driven by the internet maturing.
hmm
But what exactly is this concept? How's it different from, what came before?
Well, what's fascinating is how the source defines it. It's described as a system where individuals become these, like, centers of economic activity.
Centers of economic activity.
Yeah, based on their personality and, crucially, verified trust. It contrasts this really sharply with traditional advertising.
Which the source says is dying.
Right. Claims it's dying. People are apparently seeking information, making purchases based on recommendations from people they, well, know and trust, not just conventional ads.
The source even brings up that Bud Light marketing situation, suggesting the ad agency involved now has what it calls a negative reputation.
It uses very strong language there, yeah, suggesting they've, like, totally lost public trust because of how their actions were perceived.
And the speaker in the source material gives a personal example too, doesn't he?
He does. He mentions selling a product, Pure Sleep, but says he's not really out there pimping it a lot.
Right.
And he argues that this approach, not being primarily money motivated, not aggressively selling, that's what actually builds trust.
He thinks if he did recommend something he really valued, people would trust it more because of that. He mentions others like Max, Egan, David A.
Saying they also don't, quote, tell you to go buy shit. It implies this builds a different kind of authority, a trust-based one.
So the core insight here, it seems, is that in this emerging economy, your actions, your perceived motives, they speak louder than an ad budget.
Authenticity becomes the currency, more so than marketing spend.
Did that resonate with you listening? I mean, how often do you check reviews now or ask people you trust online before a big purchase instead of just believing the company's ad?
You might already be operating in this economy without fully realizing it.
But it's not just about products, is it? The source argues this rise of the reputation economy is tied to a really deep erosion of trust in established institutions.
And it definitely doesn't shy away from naming names or making some pretty controversial claims.
Yeah, here's where it gets particularly provocative. The source links this directly to a breakdown of trust, pointing fingers at an entity it calls the Mother Weffers.
Which is its pejorative term for the World Economic Forum, the WEF, led by Klaus Schwab.
And the source claims this group has been around for almost 100 years under different names, but it's, quote, the same crew all this time.
According to this viewpoint, yeah. And it makes these really strong, very controversial claims about the WEF's supposed influence.
Like what specifically?
Well, it states, Klaus Schwab, quote, used to brag that they had control over half of the legislatures in Western liberal republics.
Wow. It names countries.
It does. New Zealand, Australia, the U.S., Denmark, Holland are mentioned, but the source argues this whole alleged strategy backfired.
How so?
Leading to a situation where, in its words, nobody's trusting any of their politicians anymore. The Mother Weffers, the source claims, can't say shit about anything anymore.
Because the politicians they supposedly backed are now distrusted.
That's the assertion, that the populace doesn't trust them.
And it goes further, doesn't it, into the legal system.
Oh, yeah. Alleging widespread corruption there, too, claiming the courts are corrupted and owned by Soros and the Mother Weffers. Same for the Department of Justice, according to the source.
So it's painting this picture of a public perception that the federal government is illegitimate, lacks moral authority.
The source even throws out a statistic claiming 62% of the populace of the United States knows factually that the prosecution was against Trump. indicating from this viewpoint a belief in politically motivated legal actions.
Which, it says, leads to people refusing to comply with federal directives.
So what's the broader impact of all this loss of trust, according to this perspective?
Well, the source uses some pretty blunt language, calling politicians useful idiots or normies.
Implying they're either unwitting pawns or just unaware of a supposed greater war, or that political events aren't organic but promulgated by the web, meaning the WEF.
And economically.
It highlights brands doing, quote, stupid stuff. Mentions Bud Light and Target again as examples facing huge reputational hits.
Right.
And this breakdown, along with issues like the central banking system croaking, meaning like failing, and the use of ESG scores.
Environmental social governance criteria.
Yeah, which the source sees as another control tool. All this is leading to a fracturing of the system.
And that fracture, the source claims, is making way for our Great Reset, not their Great Reset.
Exactly. A shift driven from the ground up based on this loss of faith in the old structures.
Okay, so the source doesn't just describe the problems. It offers a very specific and unconventional strategy for dealing with this perceived corruption, particularly in the courts.
Right, through a personal anecdote. The speaker talks about being sued by someone he calls Butthead Corey Good.
A fake secret space program guy, according to the source.
Yeah. And he notes that this individual, Good, eventually had to admit in a deposition that everything the speaker had said about him was actually factual and true.
So what was this strategy based on?
The speaker's core assumption was critical here. He assumed judges are corrupt, compromised, and useful idiot normies.
Strong words again.
Very, making it highly unlikely, in his view, to get a non-corrupt judge. And this belief, the source details, was the foundation for his unique approach to navigating a federal case, one where he claims nobody else had managed to get out.
So what did he actually do?
The strategy, as described, involved putting extreme procedural pressure on the judge, using procedure itself as their, maximum point of vulnerability.
Why procedure?
He explains judges don't like precedent because it means their rulings get reviewed by others. But crucially, they have to live by procedure. That's identified as their biggest weakness.
The source says judges will always default to procedure because that's all they've got now, given the supposed lack of moral authority.
Right. So the specific method involved carefully timing two filings. First, a motion to dismiss, basically asking the court to throw out the case against him.
Okay.
And then right after, a motion for injunctive relief.
What did that ask for?
It asked the judge to deal with ongoing slander and defamation that the speaker claimed was happening on the plaintiff's online fundraising page, this Light Warrior Legal Fund. He argued it was causing continuous harm.
And the timing was key.
That's the argument. It was designed, the source explains, to put the judge in a really tough spot regarding setting precedent.
How so? What were the judge's options?
Well, the judge could have ignored the injunctive relief motion, agreed with it, sanctioned the plaintiff for the fundraising page, or denied it.
And any of those could be appealed.
Exactly. Any option could potentially be appealed, adding layers of review, more judges looking at it, potentially dragging the case out for years. The speaker believed he was creating a situation that would make the judge, quote, sweat.
So what happened?
The judge, according to the source, took the easy option, granted the first motion, the motion to dismiss.
Which removed the speaker from the case entirely.
Right. And that made the second motion, the tricky one about injunctive relief, totally moot. It didn't need to be addressed anymore.
So the advice seems to be, if you assume corruption, you have to pressure them using their own rules, their procedural weak spots. Give them an easy out that avoids bigger complications for them. The source also mentions the Kerry Lake versus Katie Hobbs case.
As another example where, in this view, judges act for their bosses unless procedure forces their hand.
That's the interpretation presented, that procedural traps can sometimes force judges to rule against perceived interests.
It's quite a story, and while most of us, hopefully, won't end up in federal court, what can you maybe glean from this about strategic thinking? About understanding how systems work, their vulnerabilities, maybe finding unconventional solutions.
It definitely highlights the importance of understanding the rules of the game, even if you believe the game itself is flawed.
And this loops back powerfully to the main theme, reputation. The source uses another example, a pretty jarring cautionary tale.
Yeah, it discusses Charlie Ward, describing him in really incendiary terms, calling him an admitted money launderer, and making a frankly, shocking comparison to child Jimmy Savile, to emphasize the reputational damage.
It's extremely strong language underlining the source's view of his reputation. And despite Ward apparently connecting initially with figures like General Flynn and Kash Patel,
The source says his reputation eventually caught up.
that's the claim. That even people who might have initially overlooked his past, like Eric Trump, eventually distanced themselves. Trump apparently told Ward he couldn't be part of their traveling roadshow.
And others, like Simon Parks, are now actively trying to separate themselves.
Yeah, illustrating how someone with a severely tarnished reputation, according to the source, can become radioactive. People saying, as the source puts it, "Oh my God, you know you're radioactive, can't come anywhere near you."
But conversely, the source argues, individuals with rock-solid reputations
It cites examples like Joe Rogan, David Icke, Max Egan,
will continue to, quote, plow along and keep growing in this new environment.
suggesting that consistency, transparency, maybe even admitting mistakes is key to holding on to trust.
So this all leads to a bigger vision in the source material, right? An alteration of the social order.
Yes, the emergence of what it calls our Great Reset, a world where individual trust and reputation are paramount.
And how does it see this being supported?
It suggests this emerging system will use constitutional money, typically meaning asset-backed currency like gold, and it references Satoshi's white paper
The Bitcoin blueprint.
as a kind of model for a decentralized financial system that fits this trust-based shift.
But it ends with a prediction.
A prediction for a hell of a 2025 in the U.S., the country being reclaimed, the goopiness gone away.
Implying undesirable influences removed as people rise up and remake the system.
That seems to be the implication in the source's narrative, a fundamental shift driven by the populace reclaiming control based on this new reputation economy.
So thinking about all this,
Yeah.
what does it mean for your personal reputation, your professional one? In this landscape where institutional trust is supposedly fading,
How do you make sure your own actions build credibility, build genuine connection? It's a big question.
so we've taken quite a deep dive here into this idea that trust, reputation, they're profoundly reshaping things, our economy, legal systems, politics.
Yeah, from how products get sold to how court cases are apparently fought, the fundamental rules seem to be changing right before our eyes, according to this source.
This shift really underscores the critical importance of integrity, building it, maintaining it, in a world where information just flies instantly.
And public perception can make or break people, institutions really fast. The old power structures, this viewpoint suggests, are eroding, making way for something more decentralized, more trust-based.
Which leaves us with a final thought to mull over.
Yeah.
In this emerging world where institutional trust is claimed to be eroding and personal reputations becoming paramount, how do you consciously cultivate and verify trust? Not just in others, but maybe in yourself too, as a kind of foundational strategy for navigating whatever comes next.